Hi and welcome to Thete Gaming and another Retribution Paladin video, as there are more changes in the Dragonflight beta and that bit is still dismounting me. I reported that over a month ago. Okay, oh well, it's all looking good for release, isn't it? So there have been two types of changes. There have been nerfs to various abilities, which, oh, there's another bit. Oh dear. Don't worry, it'll all be ready in time, I'm sure. There's been some nerfs which from the back will say were needed. Retribution Paladin's been doing too much damage. Few classes have. They've had a lot of nerfs as well. But it's the nature of the nerfs that's caused some consternation. But also, these set bonuses have been changed. So I talked last week about how Blizzard had stated various philosophical design aims, which included, for example, not impacting your talent choices or rotation. And I was pointing out, in actual fact, it does impact our talent choices and it absolutely complicates our rotation. It's not that they were necessarily bad in terms of the damage they would do. I have no idea of comparing tier sets. I'm not going to sim the Retribution Paladin tier sets if the sims aren't always up to date, and I can't do that with other classes. Oh, there's that bit again. It was more to do with the fact it didn't obey the design. Well, they've changed it. They've now said, so the 2 set bonuses just buffs things. The 4 set bonus just buffs things. So it's 2 set bonus, Judgment, Blade of Justice and Wake of Ashes. It says by 15%, but obviously tuning is still going to be carrying on because the latest round of tuning is not working. So the number could change, but it's basically going to buff some, in this case, builders. And then the 4 set bonus will buff Templar's Verdict, Final Verdict and Divine Storm, so spenders. I'll tell you what I find a little bit interesting, but it's probably because of the amount of damage it's doing. So it says that the 2 set will buff Wake of Ashes, which is of course a builder. But if you change Wake of Ashes for, as I have here, Radiant Decree, it doesn't buff that as a spender for the 4 set, but that's probably because it's doing quite a lot of damage, if we're honest. Right now, with the hot fixes for the various nerfs of various abilities, there's a few little weird situations. Radiant's Decree, I think, is doing too much damage. It needs to do more damage, of course, than Wake of Ashes, because Wake of Ashes is a builder, this is a spender. But ultimately, it's a spender for crowd control abilities. Is it really intended to be a serious spender in its own right? In which case, why? What's the purpose for that? For AoE, we have Divine Storm. Do we really need this one as well? I don't understand the purpose. You want it to do a decent amount of damage. You don't want it to be hideous cost for the sake of a bit of crowd control. So you want it to do a decent amount of damage. Does it need to as much as it is? So I think that's maybe over. And I know people are shouting at me, shush, be quiet, will you? We've nerfed enough of our stuff. But I'll tell you what's really strange about the nerfs now. So right now, if we look at on my character, again, this is the character I'm still leveling with, very different to a level 70 character. But so the hotfixes seem to have gone in. So I've got Final Verdict. Now on this, it's saying it does about 6,000 holy damage. Divine Storm about 4,200. So that's okay, that's fine. However, bear in mind that my Divine Storm will actually do more damage than that, because the Divine Storm itself will do 4,200 damage. But I've got Tempest of the Lightbringer as well, so it does an extra 20% on top. So you're talking about another 800 odd damage on top, so it's doing about 5,000 damage. Now it is still below Final Verdict, so you know, in a single target situation you still use Final Verdict, sort of, and Divine Storm on 2 or more. Well, this is all fine, this is grand, but I've got Final Verdict. If I didn't have Final Verdict, I'm just going to save this as something. So let's just save this as Ret 1 for now, so I can go back to it if I want to. If I just get rid of them, so with no talents at all, and no, I still got Final. I want Templar's Verdict. Where is my Templar's Verdict? It's not going to replace it unless I do something, is it? Right, I'll be back in a moment. So here we are, back with it. Templar's Verdict now, 5,500, so Divine Storm. Because, to begin with, when these hotfixes went in, Divine Storm was actually high. They are actually nerfed this now, so you'd still use that there. But if we look at this over here now, Justicar's Vengeance. Justicar's Vengeance does just over 6,000 holy damage. So I wouldn't use Templar's Verdict, would I? If I don't have final verdict, I'm just going to save this as a different one so that I can go back between them if necessary. If I don't have final verdict, if I've just got Templar's verdict here, and even if I take, which I haven't here, I mean there is another talent here, even if it was close, Templar's verdict, 15% chance to strike again. I mean, you load that up twice. I'm using, I replace it with Justicar's Vengeance, and Justicar's Vengeance heals me for the amount of damage it does. Brilliant. Everyone mocking Justicar's Vengeance? Mock ye no more. So right now, Templar's Verdict has no purpose. The only way to give it purpose is to use the talents that can buff it. You know, Righteous Verdict will help a little bit, but mostly it's going to be Templar's Vindication and Final Verdict. So if I go back to those, there we go. Right, if I go back, no, that's not the right one, is it? What? What is it doing? Thing's broken. Oh my goodness. Right, I'll be back again when I've put it back manually. Thank you very much. So, okay, we're back. I've put it all back, sort of. Final verdict now. So final verdict, it is actually still doing less than Justicar's Vengeance. However, Templar's Vindication means that I have a chance for Templar's Verdict to strike again with 20% of his extra damage. That puts it up by an average of about 3% higher, which will just about tip it over. So even then, it's not very much in it. If you're taking any damage at all, you would still spam Justicar's Vengeance. You know, and that's surely a situation that you can't have. Granted, you know, if you've got your 4-set bonus, you're into the raid tier, your Templar's Verdict and Final Verdict are increased by another 10%, so that'll tip it over a little bit more. But, you know, Justicar's Vengeance is not very far behind for something that deals damage, deals healing equal to the damage you do with it. So, I mean, I know it's nice if they're going to have Justicar's Vengeance that they make it feasible, but it's not supposed to be part of your normal rotation, surely to goodness. So there are obviously still things that need to be changed, and I think that's what part of the query is. If you need to nerf a class, it's doing too much damage, right? There's like 3 ways to approach it, and it depends on why it's doing too much damage. If it's just doing straight up too much damage for the encounters, doesn't matter what it's in like in relation to other classes, you're just going to beat the encounters too easily, then you just can do a blanket nerf on it. Same thing with if it's just doing too much damage compared to other specs. If the balance of damage is fine, if you're looking at the breakdown of damage and it's fine, you just apply a blanket nerf to it. Assassination Rogues got that. They just had their damage reduced by 30-odd%. I think Rupture's damage went up a bit. So obviously, like if there's an ability that's a bit too far behind, do a baseline nerf of the entire spec, and then buff the one that's a bit behind or whatever. They haven't done that. They've chosen to nerf specific abilities, quite a few, but still specific abilities. And that suggests that they had a problem with the balance of damage. Now, what people are noting is one major beneficiary and one major loser in this. The loser is execution sentence. Now, I'm not a huge fan of even this new execution sentence, but it is an interesting choice. It's not that I wouldn't take it. Just to remind you, for those who aren't up to date with what the Dragonflight execution sentence is, so the hammer falls down as we're used to, have been used to for years, but it's going to deal an extra amount of damage that is at the moment based on 10% of the damage you deal while it's falling. So in the 8 seconds it's falling, you are going to be hitting your damage. Whatever you can manage to do within that 8 seconds, 10% of it will be done again after the hammer's fallen. And you can buff it. There's a single target and an AoE option here. So the single target option, Executioner's Will, means that every time you use Templar's Verdict, and I hope that means Final Verdict as well, you extend the duration by an extra second. So it gives you a larger window to deal that damage. The AoE version, Executioner's Wrath, when Execution Sentence expires, 20% of the damage done during its duration is also dealt to nearby enemies. So, you know, interesting, nice. You know, that's you can see how people would like that. The problem is that they've just nerfed it. You know, they've nerfed it from where it was. And where it wasn't competitive. That's the problem. It already wasn't competitive, and now they've nerfed it. And you think, so we're a few weeks from the pre-patch, and as I've said before, really their tuning is aiming for mid-December when the raid tier opens. But obviously they want it to be something like when the pre-patch goes live as well, and then, you know, not too far off when Dragonflight goes live, even though they need to get it just right for the raids going live. I'll tell you what I think's happening here. I don't think there are enough devs. People will blame the devs here, and in a sense it looks absolutely ridiculous because what they've done here cannot possibly work. It would be a different matter if what they've done doesn't work, but it had some rhyme and reason. It's like, okay, we've made these changes, now players test them, we'll look at the logs, and then we'll see if we need to fine tune it more. Empirically, you can look at this and it can't work. You know, this hitting Execution Sentence when it was already too weak. Justicar's Vengeance isn't very far behind Templar's. In fact, you could save yourself these talent points here and put them somewhere else, and overall the damage will be better. I mean, I'm quite sure that if Sims were to look at this, they wouldn't advise taking these talents, because you're taking these talents to let Templar's Verdict do a bit more than Justicar's Vengeance. Why not use Justicar's Vengeance, get your healing, and spend them on some other talents to do the extra damage? It's a madness. It can't work. Even hypothetically, it can't work. Why have they given us a set of tuning that we'll test it for you? Yeah, well, I won't. People will test it for you and show you logs. And do you know what? You're going to go, oh, there's something wrong there. Yeah, there's something wrong. We can see it from a mile off. So what I think's happened, I don't think we've got stupid devs. I just don't think we have enough. And I think part of the problem is there aren't dedicated devs for each spec, by the way. And I don't think it's a good idea to have that. You might think, oh, you know, if I dedicate. The problem if you had 36 devs, class devs that is, working on it, some of them will be more aggressive than others and some more passive. And the aggressive, you know, you'll basically create 36 devs all lobbying for their spec, and some of them will argue a better case for their spec having some shinies than another one will. So if you end up with a weak dev, you're in trouble. If you end up with a strong aggressive dev, you're in trouble because you just make it too strong, then it's not really fun. So I think, you know, so we don't have that. I don't think we have any devs who understand Retribution Paladin. You know, they can't understand them all. They're not playing them all. I think we don't have that. And I think we don't have enough devs. Even given that you don't need one dev per spec, I don't think we have enough for the job, because what's been happening, we shouldn't be at this point where they're having to make a spin the wheel set of nerfs, because that's what this is. Anyone thinking about it rationally would not have, they'd have looked at it and go, well, execute, like each of these nerfs they've done, is it because they're doing too much damage? They've said Execution Sentence the damage from it has been halved. That's what's happened. The damage from it has been halved. Was it doing too much damage? No, there was no evidence it was doing too much damage. People weren't taking it because it was not, it needed tuning upwards. So what's going on there? And it's falling further behind because it's not even one of the things buffed by the set bonus. So it's already going to be behind, and it's going to be further behind when people have got the tier sets. Even theory crafters can't make sense of this. This is a spin the wheel just a few weeks before it all goes live, and it'll have to. And my worry is that although they've shown they've listened with the tier sets, they actually said, developers know, we heard that the previous class set was going to impact your rotational decision. Again, how can you write that if you understand the class? I mean, that's what again tells me none of the devs, without knowing them, none of the devs understand RET, because they've actually written the words, we heard you the previous class set was going to impact your rotational decisions negatively. How did they not know that? How did they not know that? because they don't know ret. Yeah, they don't know ret. And it's just one spec out of 36. Like I said, if you're not going to have class devs for each one, you are going to get some specs where no one's got a real deep understanding of it. But that's where, and this is the communication, that's where you're supposed to talk with the, I know you can't talk with the huddled masses, because, you know, the huddled masses have the approach of either I hate this or I love it, and most won't be able to articulate why. And you don't even want like people like me, even if I'm still playing the game properly. You want the theory crafters who can explain to you mathematically what the issue is, so that you don't have to do a spin the wheel nerf. They're clearly not talking seriously enough with the theory crafters. And that's what I think's happening here. It's a combination of not enough resources. I think this is a Blizzard problem, not a devs problem. I think it's a devs problem in the poor communication. But even that arguably is a project management problem. That's what this is. It's project management. They haven't assigned enough devs to the task. Think about the task they've been set, right? Class devs. Remember, that's just one team. I could, like, you know, some people will go about Blizzard, oh, you've got time to change the icons for like enchanting, fishing, you know, blacksmith. Oh, you've changed the profession icon. You've got time to do that, but you haven't got time to look at the classes. Different devs. But, you know, the class devs haven't been given enough for this massive task they had to do. The massive task they had was a huge fundamental rework of the talent system for every one of the 36 specs. And they're supposed to come up with a completely new class that plays in a completely, frankly, weird way as well. So, and it's not just that tips it up to 38 specs, it's completely new. It's a massive task they set for the class development team. Absolutely enormous. They've not given them enough time. I don't think this alpha and beta has been long enough. And they, to me, without knowing the numbers, I am going to guess that either they've got the laziest class development team ever, or they haven't given them enough in terms of numbers. So they've not given them the time, they've not given them the numbers. But also, you know, although I criticise the class devs for the poor communication, that is also a project management skill. If these class devs are all people who are, they're not hired for their communication skills. They're hired for the ability to sort the classes out. So they should have someone that works with them on PR issues. You know, a community developer should be involved, and they've obviously not been assigned someone who can do that. This is a project management issue. But what it means is, here we are, about 2 weeks away from the pre-patch. I know that the date hasn't been officially, it's 2 weeks away. 2 weeks in a couple of days. 2 weeks away from the pre-patch. And, you know, it's the end of November when Dragonflight itself goes live. And then it's mid-December when the raids go live. And we're in this position, and we're into spin the wheel class tuning. And it is spin the wheel class tuning because they've made ridiculous decisions on which abilities to nerf. And they should have just done a blanket nerf, because it needed it, a blanket nerf, reduce all damage by like 30%, 40%, whatever, just do it, and then tune it up or down, whatever. And then if there's certain abilities not being taken because they're not doing enough damage, like execution sentence, maybe you put that up a bit, not down. But anyway, going on long enough. Those are my initial thoughts. There's bound to be some more next week because, do you know what? They're going to have to retune this. This is ridiculous. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Until next time, I'll see you later.